MCP Fiber to the Prem plugin demonstration. TA5000 Fiber to the Prem provisioning using the MCP GUI. In this Show Me demo, I'll try to stick to just the provisioning steps to turn up our TA5000, ONT, interfaces, and then Internet service. Let's get started. We've launched a Chrome browser and entered the IP address of our MCP server. We'll log in as the default username admin, all uppercase, and then enter our password. The initial login screen is the alarm and event window. We have the MCP menus on the left. Let's take a look at the Inventory Network Devices screen before I start provisioning. Since this is a new MCP installation, the only device object that currently exists is the MCP rooted device. You'll see there's no interfaces and no services. But we do have the sample profiles and profile vectors that I installed after the MCP installation. We'll begin by CDAing the root interface. I'll select New Object and then Interface. In the Configure step, I'll enter CNTC rooted interface for my interface name. And we'll select Generic for the type. Click Configure. In the Deploy section, we'll select Rooted Device for the device name to indicate we're creating this new interface object off the selected rooted device. We'll then click Deploy and then Activate so MCP can verify and lock the provisioning. We now have a rooted interface that we can use to give the TA5000 a logical tie to MCP. From the New Object menu, we'll select Device to begin the TA5000 CDA process. Note you can collapse this side menu if you'd like additional screen real estate. In the Configure step, I'm going to enter my TA5000-R3-S1 device name. Under the model name field, I'll choose a TA5000 chassis. And I'm using out-of-band management, so I'm going to select static IP v4 and then enter my IP address information. I'll choose Untag, and then I'll select device TA5000's profile vector under the profile vector name. We'll click Configure to continue. Under Deploy, I'll select the MCP rooted device for the device this TA5000 will connect to, and then CNTC rooted interface as the interface the TA5000 will connect to. And then we'll click Deploy. At this point, the TA5000 has been provisioned within MCP, and the configuration has been pushed to the TA5000 through SSH CLI commands. I'll only show this once during the demo, but let's jump to our TA5000 and look at the configuration that was pushed when I just clicked the Deploy button. From the TA5000 CLI, we'll set the terminal length to 0. And then enter Show History System Verbose to view the recent provisioning. If we scroll back, we can see that SNMP, QoS, and TPID provisioning was pushed to the TA5000. Now back to MCP though, where I'll click Activate to finish the CDA process of the TA5000. Next, we'll select New Object, Interface, to begin the EDI CDA process for our TA5000. In the Configure step, type TA5000-R3-S1 _EDI for the interface name, select a default Ethernet as the interface type, and then click Configure to continue. Under Deploy, I'll choose my TA5000R3S1 as the device this new EDI is rooted to. Then we'll select default Ethernet 00 as the interface ID, and then I'll choose my lag 1A1 as the lower layer interface. We'll click Deploy and then Activate so that MCP can verify and lock the provisioning. I'm ready to CDA the PON interface, so I'm going to click the Clear Form button at the top of the screen to give me a new blank interface form to work from. In the Configure Interface Name field, I'll type TA5000-R3-S1 underbar slot 13 underbar PON 1. We are provisioning the first PON port off the GPON card in slot 13. We'll choose GPON for interface type, and then select the interface PON profile vectors under the profile vector name field. We'll click Configure to continue to deploy step. In the Deploy section, we'll select our TA5000R3S1 as the device this PON interface is rooted to. We'll choose or type our GPON 1/13/1 interface as the interface ID, and then we'll click Deploy and then Activate. Now that the PON port has been turned up, I'm going to select New Object and then Device to begin the ONU CDA process. In the Configure Device Name field, I'll enter my TA5000-R3-S1 underbar slot 13 underbar PON 1 underbar ONT1. This is the first ONU off of PON port 1 in slot 13. Next, we'll choose the ONU 411 from the model name list. I'll choose External, and then Device ONU Profiles Vector under the Profile Vector Name field. Click Configure. In the Deploy section, I'll choose my TA5000 as the device this new ONU will connect to, then my PON 1 interface that we just created as the interface this ONU will connect to. This is my first ONU, so I'll enter ONU ID number 1. We'll enter this new ONU serial number, and then click Deploy, and then Activate to verify and lock the config. Next, we'll select New Object, Interface, to begin the Ethernet interface, our customer's UNI CDA process. In the Configure step, we'll enter TA5000-R3-S1 underbar slot 13 underbar PON 1 underbar ONT1 underbar Ethernet 1. For the interface name, we'll choose Ethernet as interface type, and then we'll select the Ethernet interface's profile vectors for the profile vector name. We'll click Configure, and then under Deploy, we'll choose the new ONT1 for the device this interface is rooted to. We'll choose Ethernet 01 as the interface ID, and then we'll click Deploy, and then Activate. Our next step is the Cda Content Provider. The Content Provider represents the edge of the service provider's network where packets are coming from. We'll select New Object, Content Provider to begin the CDA process. In the Configure step, I'll enter my TA5000 underbar CP for the Content Provider name. Select Untag, and then Configure to continue. In the Deploy provision, I'll choose Interface, then TA5000R3S1 as the device to connect to, and then our EDI interface as the interface to connect to. We'll click Deploy, and then Activate. With all the MCP network objects now provisioned, we can CDA our customer's data service. We'll select New Object Service to begin. We'll enter our TA5000 slot PON Ethernet 1 underbar high-speed internet access for our service name. The service type parameter is not used for data service. I'm entering a remote ID to identify this service. And then in the service profile field, I'll select service data 1 gig profiles vector. And then we'll click Configure. In the deploy step, I'll specify specific VLAN. We'll enter VLAN 143 for the outer tag. And then we'll select our content provider. I'll choose Untagged under Downlink, and then select my Ethernet Uni interface that we provisioned earlier. We'll click Deploy, and then Activate to verify and lock this service configuration within MCP. And just so you know, it actually takes a bit more time after clicking Deploy before you can click the Activate step, because during that time it's pushing the configuration down to the network element. We've completed our TA5000 fiber to the prem provisioning using the MCP GUI. Let's take a look at the inventory of our new objects. From the Inventory Network Devices screen, we see the new device objects we created, which include the TA5000 and the ONT. Besides for the name and device type, you can see the current state and software revision. Remember, in the activated state, the object is locked by MCP and cannot be modified. From the Inventory Network Interfaces screen, we see the EDI, GPON, the Ethernet Uni, and the rooted interface we provisioned. And then from the Inventory Services screen, we see the data service we provisioned. Let's edit the service. So I'm going to click the service. It takes me to the service overview page. In the upper right hand corner, I'll click Edit. Notice that we can't modify any of the configure parameters. In order to do that, we need to deactivate. So let's click Deactivate. And then we'll click Undeploy. You can see now that the configure parameters can be modified, or we can delete it. Let's go ahead and put everything back by clicking Deploy and then Activate. I want to add a couple MCP labels to my objects. Under Inventory, Network, Devices, I'll select the TA5000. To go to this device's overview screen, notice I have an Add a Label button. I'll click Add Label. Let's add the label Alabama. And then I'll click Add Label. The new label shows up in the top corner of the device overview page. That's how you add a label for a single object. To add labels for multiple objects, under the inventory screen, go ahead and select multiple objects. So I'll select the TA5000 and my ONT, and then I'll click Bulk Actions. Under Manage Labels, you can select existing labels, or you can just start typing to add a new label. Let's add the label Huntsville. So type Huntsville, click Add Labels, and we've now added the label Huntsville to these two objects. One benefit of labels is we can use the advanced search to search based on labels. I'm going to select the label Alabama and Huntsville. I'll choose Match All, and then I'll click Search. Notice it only found the TA5000 since we didn't add the label Alabama to our ONU yet. Let's go back to the advanced search. This time I'll choose Match Any, and then Search. And notice it finds both the TA5000 and the ONU. So let's verify that the 411 ONU is actually up and that we see our subscriber's MAC address. So I'm going to come down here and select the ONT we created. It takes us to the device overview page. If I click device status under the inspect tab, this is what we want to see. Our ONU is in service and the operational state is up. And if we look down in the light level areas, we can see our light levels look pretty good. If we go up to port overview, we can see that our customer's Ethernet UNI interface is in service and the operational state is up. We have something connected. If we select service and then our high-speed internet access service, we can look for our subscriber. Under Inspect, we'll select the Subscriber tab. Excellent. This is exactly what we wanted to see. This is the MAC address and the IP address of our customer's RG. Our customer should now be able to surf the internet. It looks good here. In this demonstration, we manually provisioned all the objects required to deliver data service using the MCP GUI. If you have not already, check out the MCP Fiber to the Prim plugin course in Adtran University for a more detailed walkthrough of this process. Thanks for watching.